Sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone.
What's up, everybody? How are we tonight?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome.
I'm here with my buddy Nick Lee. We're going to be kicking it with him tonight. A couple of updates for you as we get going. A little plug for AJ, our Bleacher Brothers founder. He loves bragging about his Carrick Rangers being undefeated since he's bought into the club. AJ, I got bad news for you. You're still in second to last place.
Oh, come on for 1 minute there, down there in the corner. Wait. We're undefeated. We're AJ's Rangers are undefeated. That's all you gotta say.
Undefeated and still second to last place.
Did we win our last game? Yes or no?
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
yes or no? Yes or no questions. Did we win? Yes or no?
Last game, yes.
Did
First
Liverpool
time-
win their last game? Yes or no question?
No, but they still took a point.
Doesn't matter. That's not the question. Goodbye.
Nick, how are we, my man? Happy New Year.
Doing well. Happy New Year. I'm doing great. I don't know how you guys are doing, but I'm living large because
we're going to get there. I got a couple of other things, since we tried to put this together last night, you and I read today some interesting comments about Neymar. Did you see that?
I did. Listen, I read the whole interview, at least the entire soundbite of his answer to the various questions. The majority of the answer to the question is, I'm happy in Saudi Arabia. And then he sticks in at the very end just to get the juices going, but you never know in football. You never know. So
he's out of contract in June.
He's out of contract. Listen, if it wasn't such a hassle with making it work with the salary cap and the designated player restrictions in MLS, he'd be there tomorrow. Messi would love to get the band back together. And listen, Neymar divides opinions, right? Some people say he's a phenomenal footballer, extremely talented, scores goals, sets people up, dribbles like nobody's ever seen. The other side of it is he's hurt half the season, every season. Now, granted, that's an exaggeration, but Neymar is very injury prone and he's getting up there in age. And I think the question really becomes, does it make sense for Miami? I say no. Simply because you can't get him to show up for 50 grand a year and play a supporting role and stay healthy the whole season. I think he'll be, frankly, a distraction. I think.
I agree with you, but I think it would be a lot of fun getting the band back together with that trio up front. And especially in MLS. Think about what they did in La Liga, right?
Right. Well, they did that in La Liga many years ago, but they're also playing in the MLS. So would they tear it up? Absolutely. I mean, there's no denying the talent. I mean, you saw how prolific Suarez was from day one. I mean, he was, tied for second most goals in the league, and he didn't even play a full season, right? So if Suarez can do it, Neymar can certainly contribute. However, we saw in the Cup, in the playoffs, scoring goals wasn't their problem. It's defense. They have none. So, unless Neymar can play center back, I don't think it makes sense.
We all know he's not playing any type of defense.
Listen, that whole front line wouldn't track back if you gave him $1 million a game to do it, right? They can't. I don't think they can. I don't think they have the legs. Maybe Suarez. Suarez could probably get back there. He wouldn't get back up. He'd probably bite somebody, but,
But I thought it was a good, fun story. We're early in. I want to start here because we're a week into the transfer season.
Right.
Nothing really big has happened yet. I don't know how much smoke is behind the Madrid offer from last week for Trent and ponying up 20 million and Liverpool knocking it down.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think. Look, I think Real Madrid has played this game for a very long time. I think the Mbappe saga from Paris is a perfect example of how they treat players at other clubs. I mean, they were completely full of smoke, but what they do is they unsettle the player and they force the club that owns him to make a decision. Now, in Paris's case, they held firm. They said, "Listen, we've got him under contract. He's going to play, 5 more months for us. Finish out the season. We're going to win the league, and then you can have him. You can go pay him, $500,000 a week or whatever you're going to pay him to go play in Madrid." Um, Liverpool is not Paris. They do not have unlimited funds, and I think the bigger question is, does it make sense to sign him long term anyways? I mean, do you take 20 million for somebody who you possibly don't want around anymore? I will argue that you absolutely do want him, but from a financial perspective, if they're not planning on keeping him, 20 million is more than zero. So, you know, I
I'm,
think 20 I think 20 is insulting, frankly. And
I'm
I think that's more posturing from Madrid than, you know, people making it up to try and get him to sign a contract. I think that's Madrid tampering, for lack of a better term.
I've been reading that Liverpool has an offer on the table to make him the second highest earner at the club.
I
And
think if that was true, I think he would have signed it already. I
I
really do.
agree. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of posturing going on. I think he's already got one foot out the door, and we're going to get to it in a couple of minutes after Sunday. I don't know if Madrid paid for him for an all-inclusive weekend somewhere to just go party his rear end off, or if he was on the take from the betters. But
Listen,
I don't know.
it was one of his worst weekends, but I'll tell you this, and this is hard for me to say as a Manchester United fan through and through. I mean, I got the damn club tattooed on my arm, for Christ's sake. I hate supporting this guy. I will say this. Liverpool, 4 of the last 5 seasons, have conceded 32 goals or less, and he played over 90% of those matches. So the argument that he's a raging defensive liability, I think, falls flat simply because he is part of a back four, not a back five, who concedes less than a goal a game. So if you have the right manager and you have someone as talented as him on the ball and as mediocre as him in defense, you make it work. Obviously, Klopp made it work for a number of years. Slot is making it work currently. Now, granted, that formula only works when you have players like Virgil van Dijk, but they do. Liverpool has one of the best center back stables, if healthy. If Konate and Van Dijk are playing, I would argue that's the best center back pairing in the Premier League, possibly in the world, if both are healthy, which Konate has injuries. Van Dijk is an Iron Man. He's almost always available. That's how you afford to have someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold in the team. The irony is that Madrid, in theory, if you have Rudiger and Militao playing and possibly Alaba healthy, they could get away with it as well. But 2 of the 3 of them are always injured. So the idea that Real Madrid is going to pay any more than $2 for him in the January transfer window when they frankly can't afford to have a defensive liability is crazy. From the
Yeah,
Liverpool perspective, regardless of his talent, I don't know if you can let him leave for the culture and the fans, at least without making a significant offer, like you said, second highest paid player at the club, joint highest paid player at the club. It's going to hurt the bank, but your hero from the Champions League, and although he is a liability, part of the back four that's been the best defensive pairing, arguably over the last 5 years, only lacking in comparison to Manchester City, it's hard to let him go.
oh, and I think the biggest thing of all of it that people forget is he's been there forever.
20
He,
years.
he's come up through the academy. He's that next Stevie G, right?
Yeah.
Where you've got loyalty to the club that's you've grown up in, just like
Right.
Messi with Barcelona, until it's time to go because of old age. In my opinion, for him, it's not time to go. And I know we spoke about this a month ago when we did the do they sign him or do they let him walk?
Right.
In my opinion, you can't let this guy walk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I went over Liverpool's wage bill this morning, and I was somewhat stunned about how low of
Yeah.
weekly earners a lot of these guys are.
Most of them, yeah. Yeah.
They can afford to pay him. And if these rumors of Elon Musk coming in and buying this freaking club that I read this morning, pay him whatever he wants, man. Pay Van Dyke whatever he wants. Pay definitely Mo whatever he wants.
Yeah. I think
It's
the only reason you don't is if you look across the bench. So we had Liverpool versus Manchester United, the ultimate Premier League derby this past weekend. If you look across at Manchester United and you look at the abysmal quality of player making $300,000 a week, you get situations such as Kobe Mainu, who's up for a contract renewal, who's barely 20 years old, who's had a season and a half of pretty good play, is about to get paid over 200,000 British pounds a week, 250,000 euros a week as a 20-year-old. And Manchester United has the most overpaid, complacent squad in the world. I think what made Liverpool so successful is those players earn every single dollar, and it's extremely difficult to get paid a high wage. And some would argue that if you had to pick two of the three, you would pick Mo and Virgil every time. And those contracts would be, well, Virgil's would be justified regardless of what you paid him. I don't even think that's a conversation. We'd waste time.
Yeah.
Mo, the concern is his age. Trent is the concern of his liability, and you said his commitment. I mean, he was born and raised in the city. He spent 20 years at the club. It's hard to question that as an issue of commitment. He did have a bad weekend, and frankly, I think when Madrid turns your head, you do have a bad weekend. I think, again, the only reason you don't pay all of them exactly what they want is because you're looking at inflating wages across the rest of the squad. Because if they're all making 300 plus a week, Ryan Gravenberch, who's had a phenomenal season, is arguably a top three midfielder in the Premier League, who's making 80 grand a week, is going to say, hey, wait a minute. You know, Alex McAllister, who's on, I think, 125.
120, yeah.
Wait a minute. You know, I play 90% of the games. I hold down the midfield that was a problem since Gerrard left. Why aren't I valuable to this club? I
But
think
do
that's
you,
the overall consideration.
do you think Salah is asking for more than what he's getting now? Because
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how him and his agents could think that they're going to get more than they're getting now when he's 32, going to be 33.
I think they're banking on the fact that he's hard to replace. They're banking on the fact that he's hard to replace, and he's having the season of his life, a potentially record-breaking season in terms of combined goals and assists, goal contributions to the club. He could easily break that record this year. And they're sitting down at the table and saying, we don't care that he's 32. Look what he's doing at 32. You really think at 33 it's going to drop to 5 goals and 5 assists? No. He's actually stayed relatively healthy for 80 to 90% of his career. He's been durable and he's been reliable in terms of production. I'm guessing that's the negotiation that they're having.
But if I'm on
Suffice it to say,
if I'm on
if
the
he
Liverpool
leaves, they
if I'm
ride.
on the Liverpool side of the table,
Yeah.
all these statements that he's making out in public tells me he doesn't want to leave. His family's entrenched there. They've been there for 8 years. Yeah, he's having an unbelievable season. He's never hurt, super fit. He's having some of the best football of his life. If you ask me right now, no question he's the Balloon d'Or winner, right?
Right. Well, they never pay attention to him, frankly. But yes, on contribution alone, since unfortunately it's a popularity contest, no.
Right.
On contributions to his team alone, 1,000%. 1,000%. The fact that he was number 6 in the voting last year was disgusting. It was
And we
disgusting.
talked about it. I think the only club that would pay him at least what Liverpool is offering is PSG.
Right.
And why would he want to leave this culture? He seems so super refreshed under Slot. right? It looked like he was burnt out from Klopp and everything he had to do under
Yeah.
that style of play. He's so Why is he going to want to leave? First place
He doesn't. He doesn't.
EPL, first place in Champions League, semifinals tomorrow. Like they're going for cup after cup after cup. PSG, what are they doing? Come on.
Yeah. Listen, I think at the end of the day, if you're the Liverpool side, you bring that up, number one, and you say two, how much is it worth to you forfeiting in annual wages to potentially break Premier League records and be an icon for generations past your own life? For hundreds and hundreds of years, you can be remembered as one of the greatest Premier League players of all time if you stay for a couple more years. Are you really going to fight us on 50 grand a week?
And he'll go down as an LFC legend.
Yeah. Yeah, if he's going to go down as an LFC legend regardless. I think you sell him on the idea of being a Premier League legend is a lot better than being a La Liga wannabe, scored a couple of goals and made, 50 extra grand a week. I think at the end of the day, he's not leaving. I think he will sign a reasonable deal. And I think he's lying through his teeth, as you said. I think he's lying through his teeth. This will be my last year at the club. Excuse my friend. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. There's not enough people who will pay what you're asking for. And why would you leave? Why would you? It's crazy. That one's crazy. I think they'll get a good deal. I think the player who will be the highest paid out of the three of them will be Van Dijk. Solely because he is the heart and soul of that team and he doesn't say an effing word about anything. Every single one of his negotiations is behind closed doors. He closes his lips, he keeps his mouth shut, and he's got a phenomenal agent. And I think,
And you know
like
what?
I said, he's the facilitator to players like Mo Salah, who doesn't have to track back, and Arnold, who can't play defense.
And out of the three, he's the most valuable. I hate that it sounds crazy, right? Like with the season what Salah's having, but he's the guy that the hardest to replace. Because what
Yeah.
center back in the world right now can you go out and get to replace him without paying $100 million?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't replace him regardless because he runs the locker room.
Yep.
He's the heart and soul of that team. He's the captain for a reason. And like you said, you're not going to sell him, right? Because he's irreplaceable. However, you do want to keep him happy. And I think at the end of the day, you sit down and he says, I want 350 a week. You say, done. Where do you want the check sent? What's the bank account number? Oh, wait, we already have it. Here it is. Here's your first week. And here's a nice healthy bonus for sticking around and making it easy, frankly. I would be grateful as Liverpool from a negotiating standpoint that he's made it so easy on them.
I would be thankful for that.
Yeah.
So I wanna get into Sunday's match. I got to tell you, I went for the first time. I discovered this official Liverpool Supporters Club.
Nice.
The Jersey Shore branch
Okay.
is 2 miles down the street from my house at this bar called MJ's. So I went for the first time on Sunday to watch our frenemies match between your club, Man U, my club, LFC.
Yep.
I'm going to let you take the stage first. You tell me, from a Man U fan, your viewpoint of that game.
I'm going to give you two answers. I'm going to give you an answer in perspective of the match itself and an overall perspective. The match itself, I am extremely pleased, simply because that's the performance that we should be having every single week. That being said, that's the performance we should have every week, and we've had it once every 6 weeks. So playing against Liverpool is a phenomenal opportunity. It's our rival. The history is incredible. There has been bloodshed in these matches, and Liverpool has dominated for a long time. We haven't won at Liverpool in over 8 years. It was 2016. We haven't gotten a result in over 6 years. So the fact that we pulled it off against a high-flying, high-powered, top-of-the-league Liverpool to even get a point, and potentially, if Harry Maguire didn't shin the ball 20 yards over the goal in the last second, we could have won that match. And I think it would have been a fair result. So for the particular match, I was elated. I was absolutely elated. The response at halftime was incredible. I think from a competitive standpoint, it was certainly not Liverpool's best game. I'm not going to say here and sit here and say we beat the best Liverpool team of the year. It was an off day for a lot of your players, and I think the execution wasn't there. I think they were surprised, frankly, at how well Manchester United was playing in that formation. It is a weird formation, and it is hard to adapt to, which can potentially point to its success in the future. My biggest problem is this: it's really easy to get excited to play against Liverpool, but we just lost 4 in a row
Yeah.
to a couple absolutely abysmal Premier League teams because we didn't show any effort. Our last win was because we showed effort against a good team. Our next match, thankfully, is against Arsenal. But what's going to happen when we play Brighton? Are we going to all of a sudden switch off again and have a horrible result where people aren't even pressing the ball because they can't be bothered? That's scary. So, from the individual match itself, I'm very proud of the way they played. There was a lot of creative football. I think specifically, I would love to shout out Bruno Fernandes. He has gotten so much crap. He has gotten so much crap. And I say crap because I'm trying not to curse too much on this show. So much crap for the way he plays, the fact that he turns the ball over too much, the fact that he's always complaining. He's not captain material. He has been absolutely slated by the fan base for years now. And they don't appreciate it. He showed his brilliance and his leadership and his talent in that match. I was super happy to see it. And he came out after the game and he said he's frustrated, similar to the thought I'm echoing here. Why can't we do this every week? So
He had a hell of a match.
Hell of a match. The close control in the Liverpool press in our own half to hit breakaways, phenomenal. I will be extremely happy about this match long term if we win at Arsenal, but more importantly, win at Brighton. I want to see us dominate. Now, granted, Brighton's having a phenomenal season. They've built an incredible roster. I think Ruder is a problem. They have a great attacking midfield, a prolific striker. We're going to have a problem there. But if we can put in that effort day in and day out, I'll be happy. So I'm hesitant for the future. I'm excited with the performance. I can't imagine you're that pleased.
I'm not. I think Liverpool took the game for granted. I think Van Dijk said it all in his comments. You got to respect the opponent. I think they walked into that match not respecting United, saw the gap in the table, saw the way that United has been playing, especially trying to learn this new formation. I know AJ personally thought too, they were going to walk away with this.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think it was an off day for a lot of the guys. It was definitely Trent's biggest off day. I love the resilience for them to come back. I mean, Gapco, Jesus, this dude, this year under slot, holy cow, right? He's automatic. And then we go up on that PK, and to give it right back, I'm not going to say I'm not happy, but right now, we're at the point where Liverpool is.
Yeah.
It's games like these where you're expected to win.
Oh, yeah.
And getting a point is okay. You're still staying ahead, especially after all the results from this past weekend.
Right.
With some of the other, front runners stumbling as well. But man, you got to put Man United away, and they didn't. I don't know if they're getting some type of complacency within the team, what have you. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not that concerned,
Right.
but it is what it is. It's a 2-2 draw. You get a point. I get a point. Keep on moving forward. I think for you guys, I think this can be a massive opportunity as a launching pad.
Yep.
You get Arsenal next. Like you said, Brighton, they're having one heck of a season, and just keep building and building and getting comfortable in this new Gaffer's formation and see where they go.
Yeah, I think from a Liverpool perspective, I think we're going to see how good Slot is as a manager from here. I think it's somewhat deflating to lose a point to 14th place lose 2 points to 14th place Manchester United. And I want to say there wasn't that much effort. Now, granted, Slot's style is completely different from Klopp. Obviously, over the last 8 years, we've seen high octane, high pressing all over the pitch. However, there just didn't seem to be that grit. Usually, when Manchester United and Liverpool play, there's grit. Liverpool's putting in tackles because they hate Manchester United. I didn't see it. So, now to be fair to Slot, he came out before the game in his pregame interview and said, United is much better than 14th place. I have warned my team. They have to be ready. So, I think it's on the players. They didn't listen. Now he's got to rally them and say, hey, we still got a game in hand. We're clear, at the top of the table, 4 points, I believe, from Arsenal now. Let's continue to capitalize on the opportunities. One bad result, it's not even that bad. They didn't lose, thank God, from a Liverpool perspective, because I think the mood in that dressing room would be quite different. And we'll see how he rolls. We saw even, listen, Pep Guardiola had a couple of bad draws and losses, and it turned into an 8-game skid. We're not looking at that here with Liverpool.
No.
I think
No.
they go out, they get a result in the next match, and at the end of the season, nobody's going to be talking about this from a Liverpool perspective. So
It's a blip on the radar. Like they underestimated their opponent, but to your point, this is the Red Sox Yankees rivalry, right? In baseball, like Cowboys Giants, those NFC East battles. Like this is the creme de la creme. Like you never underestimate Man U, and Man U should never underestimate Liverpool.
listen, we saw, I think, a perfect analogy, college football analogy. We've seen Ohio State so far dominant in the college football playoff. They lost to Michigan. That's just what happens in rivalry games, right?
Yep.
I mean, it was probably in one of the more atrocious offensive games that they've put together all year, right? That's a high flying team. It happens in rivalry games. So,
And they were winning.
right.
They
So-
they were winning, and it was just piss poor defending. At the back end on that coming down that left flank. Stuff happens, but we'll see. You guys will grow from it. Liverpool will grow from it. I think we're going to be fine the rest of the season. We have a game in hand. But this is a perfect transition to what I wanted to talk about next. And there's a little deflation because one of the games was played today, but the Carabao Cup. And we were talking about last night who's going to prioritize this. And clearly Arsenal today did not.
Yeah, which is, and you had asked me yesterday, who needs to win this? My answer for this segment, and they just screwed me, was Arsenal.
Yeah.
Arsenal
100%.
needed this so badly.
Yeah.
And, listen, a lot of people dog the Carabao Cup. It's not nearly as prestigious as the FA Cup, right? It's just the League Cup. It's a smaller tournament. Trophies are trophies. Eric Ten Hag, with probably one of the more terrible teams of Manchester United in the last 20 years, beat Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final, and it was a boon to both the team and the fans. It restored faith, granted not for very long, but it saved his job, and it saved the progress of the team, and it gave supporters something to go home with and think, hey, at least we won a trophy. We can show up when it matters in a knockout format and push people around and win a trophy. The biggest knock on Arteta is he's got no silverware, right? Once he left Pep, the whole idea was he was going to go out on his own. He's got his own team. He's going to start winning tournaments, and he's going to really show what he's made of. And as a player, sure. As a manager, I mean, listen, of all of the cups that he's going to be in, this was the easiest simply because it's the smallest. And a lot of the big players have been eliminated. Granted, I say big players. It's the championship in the Premier League. So everybody essentially is a big player, but you're short on games. Excuse me, you're short on time to prepare for games. However, prioritize winning. I hate to say this to Arsenal fans, and they'll probably rip me for it, but you're not going to win the Premier League. Start with something. Pick a cup. I don't care if it's the Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. Win something. It will restore faith. It will give confidence. you will stand on a podium and lift a trophy, the confetti will fall, and you'll be like, we can do this. It matters. And, I can understand, now you have less games on the schedule. Maybe you'll be more prepared to push for the Premier League title against Liverpool, maybe. I don't know. I think it's a big missed opportunity.
I 1,000% agree with you. I thought out of the 4 teams remaining, they needed this. Like you said, they got to get some type of silver trophy under his belt, something to build off of, especially with the Saka injury. That's going to hurt them for the next couple of months. So I was shocked when before the game even started and I saw the starting lineup. I said, they're just throwing their hands up in the air.
Throwing it in.
And you know
Throwing
what?
it in.
And on the flip side, though, from last year, Liverpool won that thing. And when they won this trophy, there was talk of a treble, a quadruple, right?
Yeah.
And then look what happened. It was the only silverware they brought home.
Right.
But they still got a trophy.
Still got a trophy.
It's not the success that an LFC fan wants to see. We want more. But at least we could say we walked away from that season with something. And I think this is going to be another year where Arsenal's not going to bring home any hardware.
I struggle with the concept of prioritizing a competition over another when you're a club as big as Arsenal. And we can argue, is Arsenal one of the big clubs? Absolutely. In the history of the Premier League, in the city of London, they have a decent fan base around the world. All of the competitions matter. All of the games matter. And yes, it's fun to see youth. It's extremely important to give your backup players minutes, right? All of these things are very important, but you do that at the beginning of the tournament. Yeah. I mean, unless all 11 of your starting players, for your Premier League roster are really struggling with injuries, and you just kind of wipe the slate and put in, whoever you got who's healthy, you don't give up in the semifinal. That's just, to me, that lacks professionalism. And I don't think the ownership will give him any sort of consequence, but I think it's going to be looked at if they come up empty-handed yet again this year.
I mean, and what's crazy is the way I'm interpreting our conversation, right? This is a 2-legged affair. But
Right.
you and I think it's a 1-legged affair because of how they just gave up today.
I know I'm treating it like that, but I can't imagine that you would put yourself at such a handicap and then just come roaring. I think he'll field a similar roster in the second leg.
That's what I mean. Like I just, it's mind blowing to me. I know Liverpool's going to rotate their squad tomorrow, and not to be biased, but I do think Liverpool has a deeper squad, and they've blooded a lot of their youth already. Like look at the cup final last year.
Yeah.
Like 7 or 8 new players got into that final against Chelsea at Wembley, and they all did well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how it's going to go against Tottenham tomorrow. From the position I'm sitting in as a fan, I honestly couldn't care less about this right now, because I think the chances for Liverpool this year at both the Premier League trophy level and the Champions League trophy, I think they're more in our grasp than they were last year.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I would be willing, and this is crazy, as a fan, I'd be willing to sacrifice this competition to make sure I'm staying in first place in the Premier League and in the Champions League. Because
which is kind of in direct contrast to our opinion for Arsenal. But like you said, Liverpool is poised to potentially win both of their absolute top 2 competitions. Arsenal is not. So, I mean, listen, I would love to touch on, you brought them up, Tottenham. If we have a minute, I would love to talk about Tottenham and Postecoglou. Let me ask you this. It's a fascinating discussion. What do you do with him? How does he proceed? A phenomenal, high-flying, offensive, high-octane team who can't keep the ball out of the net. What do you do?
It's a conundrum, man, because I think they've been one of the bigger disappointments this season. There's no consistency to them. It's one of those freaking 70-mile-an-hour roller coasters, right? They come out, they thump Man City 4-0.
Yeah.
Then turn around and they play Liverpool and get thumped 6-3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't figure them out. And the lack of consistency, like to me, that points to the manager, right? And he can't get the same quality out of the team day in and day out. And for me, that's a problem. I really like him. I think he's a very under the radar type of guy.
Mhm.
I think he's also working for one of the cheapest, most difficult
Dan
chairman
Levy. Yep.
to work for.
Yeah.
I don't see them investing a whole hell of a lot of money in that club, and I don't get it when they have that brand new, unbelievable arena that's now hosting NFL games. Tottenham is just such a complexity to me because they're that close every year, but they never bring it home. So I don't know what they do. Do you rip it all up and bring somebody else in and get the same type of results? Because that's what I think is going to happen if you don't get rid of Levy.
Right. Levy is certainly a problem, and I think so. Here's an interesting fact, and it's going to affect my answer. They stated, I believe it was at the end of December, that their plan for January, and you're gonna lose your mind when you hear this if you haven't heard it already, was to bring in 1 to 2 attackers, no defense. When you have Christian Romero, who was injured for months, and you brought him back too early and got injured 6 minutes into his return. I'm exaggerating, but it was like the 17th minute, and he's out again. Van de Ven, who was out for a month and a half, who came back too early. You forced him back because you have no defenders. You recalled a defender from loan who was already deemed to be in excess because he stinks, who's now your starting left back because you have no defenders. And the director of football says we're going to bring in attackers. So what I mean to say is I believe that Postecoglou, I think, is a very, very intelligent manager. His interviews are fascinating because when they actually ask him technical questions, he really understands the game. My guess is that he has a solution for this team to be more defensively sound, and he can't implement it, and therefore has decided that the only way to win games is to win 5-4. As opposed to 2-0 or 1-0. So if they obviously Daniel Levy's not going anywhere, and he's incredibly cheap, right? And I think his biggest problem is he doesn't sell players to fund. They got plenty of guys that they could offload who are not essential for the team. They just renewed Son's contract.
Yeah, saw that.
So he's sticking around. I think getting the manager and the director of football in the same room and on the same page and away from, frankly, Daniel Levy and probably your marketing director who says, we don't care about winning games, we care about selling shirts, so we're going to buy strikers and forwards. And getting a plan together, I think, is what saves Postecoglou. If he doesn't get defensive reinforcements, he's done for, and I'm letting him off the hook. I don't think it's his fault. I think
It's not.
When you're not provided with a roster that fits your system, you need an incredible center back pairing to play the level of football that he plays. And if you've only got 2 and they have injury problems, you have 0. You can't win with 0 defenders. And if you're not going to bring any in, we've seen this with a lot of managers. I say this like it's a revelation. Think about Pochettino. He was 2 to 3 signings away, I believe, in the prime of that team from winning the Premier League. And he got 0. He didn't get a single player he wanted, and that's why he left. And he was very polite about it. But if you read between the lines, you read some of the deeper articles from the insiders, he had a phenomenal plan for the Tottenham team, and they didn't implement it. So Postecoglou is going to get the scapegoat award of the year. They're going to say he doesn't, he can't manage his team. He can't adapt. He doesn't know how to defend, and he's going to get fired at the end of the year. And I think, frankly, it's wildly unfair. I do hope he lands on his feet with a team that's willing to spend money, because I think he will be very successful.
There'll be plenty of smart enough owners that will realize that. You and I both know it. I mean, and we're not even over there.
Yeah.
Offense doesn't win, in soccer, because you can't guarantee every week to be bagging 5 or 6, goals. It just doesn't happen in the world of soccer. You've got to be able to defend and defend and defend and just ward off consistent attacks. Perfect example. Look at Man City right now. Why did they go on that 8-game, non-winning streak? Because they
couldn't keep the ball out.
And at the end of the day, that's what matters. And that's what's so perplexing about some of these squads is where and how they prioritize their spending.
Yeah.
And the only rumor I'm hearing, like as far as Liverpool buying this window, is they're back in for that holding defensive midfielder from I forget which team it is in Portugal that turned him down over the summer. And
yes.
You did 20 minutes ago with Gravenberch, right? It's having this unbelievable year. But what happens if he goes down?
Yeah. Yeah, that holding role, yeah.
So to me, it's just funny. And now I read last night, I don't know if you've seen it, but LFC is willing to part with Nunez. And I got to be honest with you, I'm on the other side of the camp from a lot of other Liverpool supporters. Where
you want to keep him?
I think they should keep him. Now, he's not bagging goals, but his work rate coming back defensively, you can't question it. His hold-up play, you can't question it. He's getting a lot of opportunities. Is he putting the ball in the back of the net? No, but you don't think that at some point that's not going to turn around? His overall game, now, it doesn't warrant what they paid for him, but he's still so young. He's, 24?
Yeah, I think he. I don't know. I didn't know that he's that young. I know he's young. I know he's.
Yeah. So
I don't think, and the wages aren't crazy, right? I think he's on.
No, like I said, when I saw the wage bill for Liverpool today, I fell out of my chair what some of these guys are making. I'm like, Jesus Christ! That I would be insulted to play on a team of that level in the Premier League and be making 15, 20 grand a week.
Yeah,
now I know I would love to make that, but in their world, it's completely different. So
I think listen, the only way you let Nunez walk, and since Liverpool is, I'm going to say this with love, stingy with its business transactions because they're smart, and that's how they are so financially healthy. The only reason you let him walk is if you need to let him walk to either sign an additional defender or holding midfielder, or to pay Virgil what he wants. That's the only reason you let him go, because depth matters. And we just talked about the cup, and we talked about Arsenal throwing in the towel, and Liverpool's going to rotate. I think, defense, we've talked about it before. We talked about it last time we were on, and I believe the previous time. Defense wins the championships, right? A lot of Manchester United fans were up in arms this week when Harry Maguire got an extension, right? But
I didn't even see that. Really? How long? How many years?
Just a year. Just a year. And frankly, look, reliable. And he's been very reliable. He is much more suited for a back three than he was a back two. And he's played really well under Amorim. And frankly, reliable, healthy, strong central defenders of Premier League caliber are hard to find. I would keep him. I would keep him solely for his leadership as well. He captained England for a long time. He captained United under Ole. And we really don't have anyone else who holds the team. Anyways, my point is, if Liverpool is going to invest, on the defensive side of the ball or in midfield, maybe you let Nunez go. It's nice that Gakpo is finally firing on all cylinders. Maybe that's influencing their decision, but I also say keep what you got. Liverpool's in first place for a reason because of the entire roster, not because of parts of it. So everybody's got a piece to play, and don't let them walk.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was talking to AJ last night, and he was all fired up about Wrexham, and I was like, yeah, you can't compare Wrexham to an EPL team. They don't have the money, right? They don't have the depth. I said, look at Liverpool on Sunday. They're rolling Nunez and Jota off the bench. Those two guys cost Liverpool collectively about $130 million in transfer fees. And they're just hanging out on the bench waiting for an opportunity to come into the game. I said, Wrexham hasn't invested $130 million in their entire roster.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, listen, if they
Not
keep
yet.
climbing, but listen, if they get a Premier League TV contract and a real sponsor, not just a couple of celebrity owners, if they get that sponsorship money and the Premier League TV contract, you'll see big investments, but
Oh,
they're
yeah.
obviously far away from that. So,
But that's my point is, like, that's the type of depth that Liverpool is rolling out that Arsenal's not. And here's the good thing for Liverpool. And then I want to transition over to something else. Liverpool didn't spend any money last summer.
no, they didn't.
They dropped $40 million on that goalie, in Portugal, and then they loaned them right back to the team. So they have the coffers to go out and get what they want this window without selling. And all right, yeah, Nunez is not Torres. He's never going to be Torres. He's not built like him. He doesn't move like him. But when he's on the pitch, he does influence the game.
Yeah, he does.
And that's what I like. But I want to get into real quick. We got a little bit of time. You got to answer this for me because I don't think I can provide an answer. I tried looking today. But what was the Italy Super Cup being played in Saudi Arabia in the final?
The same reason anybody plays in Saudi Arabia, my friend.
The dough?
The dough. The dough. So let me put it to you this way. The winner of the FA Cup is paid in the hundreds of thousands. The winner of the Italian Super Cup is paid 8.5 million euros, which is a big boon to a team. Granted, listen, you're not going to get a superstar player for $8 million, but $8 million makes a big difference when you're spending the time to fly overseas and win a cup. Imagine if there was an $8.5 million payout for the Carabao Cup. I bet Arsenal's not dialing it in, right? Every penny matters. So that's a money move, and more so from a Saudi Arabia perspective, just to bring talent to the country, show them the country. They're trying to promote their own league. From the Italian league perspective, Serie A, it's all about growing viewership, right? So the same reason that preseasons are played in China. Tottenham's not flying to China because they're going to sell jerseys. They want people watching. They want people invested in the team, and then their financial commitment comes later. So getting eyes on the sport, on the teams. Thankfully for Serie A, from a marketing perspective, both of the Milan teams made it to the final. So the only other really boons you could have would maybe Napoli and Juventus, but Juventus lost. Having the Milan derby in Riyadh and having a 3-2 thriller was perfect from a marketing perspective. From a match perspective, now I had a Pippo Inzaghi jersey from the time I was 14 years old. I'm a massive AC Milan fan. I'm going to say it right now, they did not deserve to win that game. If it wasn't for Mike Maignan and some incredible saves and a couple of wild blocks, Inter dominated. So, quick game recap. First 15 minutes, high-octane AC Milan, pressing, active, didn't score. Inter Milan from the 15th minute to about the 75th minute dominated that game and created a litany of chances. The majority of them missed. They should have scored, and I'm not exaggerating, 6 goals in that game. They had at least 3 to 4 opportunities to increase that lead from 2 goals, and they blew it. Credit to Milan for fighting back. They had an incredible free kick goal from Teo. They got them on the score sheet, and they pressed from there. success actually came when they substituted two of their stars. Musa, who's an American, one of our budding stars on the United States team, actually had a pretty poor game, frankly. And when he was taken off, the offense changed. Um, I was impressed. I'm very impressed with the new manager, Cohen Sal.
He's
a
only been there
Portuguese
for a
manager.
week.
What's that?
He's only been there for a week.
He's been there for a week, and he's making history, and he's a funny guy. I don't know if you've seen any of his interviews. He's very calm in person, but he is an absolute hothead. They asked him what changed at halftime. He said, I went in there and screamed at every single one of my players. I lost my cool. I don't do nice. I'm not nice to people. I hope they're okay with it because they already paid me, but I'm going to get mad at people when they don't do their job. And that's what I did. And then we won. I'm like, that's great. That's great. You know, that reminds me of the old school style. No player hand holding.
It's a breath of fresh air, right?
It's a breath of fresh air. And if you watched under the previous manager, lackadaisical is probably the perfect word to describe AC Milan. Phenomenal talent from front to back, depth in the roster. What's that?
They got a ton of talent.
Oh.
I saw it firsthand when they played Liverpool in one of the opening games of Champions League.
Right. Yeah. And it's just, you know, it comes down to, I mean, I think you see it in the Premier League. You've seen it with Manchester United managers. Not the most talented roster we've had in the last 20 years, but, you know, guys being lazy. There's no excuse. And frankly, at the end of the day, Milan said enough is enough. I don't care about talent and formations. I want someone who's going to kick ass and get what we pay these players out of them. And the talent is there. I think the win of the Super Cup, first beating Juventus, you know, and then beating Inter, two high-powered, traditional powerhouse teams, is really going to buoy them for the rest of the season. They've got some ground to make up. I don't think they're winning the league, but they're moving in the right direction. I don't know if you saw the fun story, just fun fact. The son of the new manager of Milan was playing against his father in the semifinal match between Juventus and Milan. So the starting, he plays on the right wing, also on the left. Cohen Sal plays for Juventus. And his father's first match at Milan was against him at Juventus. Unfortunately,
that's a fun fact. I like that.
It would have been cooler if he hadn't pulled his calf in the warm-up.
Yeah.
Which
and you know who's thriving over there, and he would be stupid to leave that club in that league, is our homegrown boy Pulisic.
There's not enough that can be said. There's not enough that can be said about how good he's playing right now. I don't know if you're familiar with Rafael Leao.
Yeah.
So the star Portuguese winger was very dominant in the European Cup and then in the World Cup. He's a phenomenal player. He has taken a back seat to Christian Pulisic on the left wing. Tells you all you need to know about his career is skyrocketing. He's comfortable in the system. He loves the city. I really hope he stays because he's cementing his legend, and we need that. We need him.
I was just going to say, like, selfishly, from an American standpoint, I want him to stay there because that's where his confidence is just going to keep going and going and going up and make him that star on the world stage.
Yeah,
so why? Like, I've read rumors of him wanting to go back to England. Why?
Mm-hmm. It's from what I've read, and you know, everybody's an insider, right? So you take all of this with a grain of salt. It's been said that in his inner circle, it's unfinished business, right? That his time at Chelsea was grossly unperformed to his potential talent, but it was a developmental stage for him. I really don't put a lot of stock in that. I think, you know, when you're an American player, I think the number one league for you, if you haven't been watching Serie A for 20, 30 years, is going to be the Premier League. Maybe he wants to go back and, you know, stamp his name on the Premier League when he's done, you know, lighting it up in Milan. If he's paid appropriately, yes, but he's got to be put in the right situation. I think, you know, the fact that, as you said, his confidence is high because in that squad, there's competition. It's him versus currently the best Portuguese winger in the world. And we know all about Portuguese wingers.
Oh, yeah.
He beat him out. He beat him out for a spot in the squad. And granted, they play a lot. They'll put Pulisic on the right wing. I'm not saying Leao's sitting out because of Pulisic, but he won that spot. He starts at left wing or right wing, in some cases above Leao. It's doing wonders for his confidence. He's Captain America. Keep him there, please.
And his game is not for nothing. His game is suited for a Serie A
Yes.
versus the Premiership. Just like, you know what, Landon Donovan, right? He
Yeah.
tried to make a go of it. It's just not his style. It's not his thing. You can still have an unbelievable career, and at least from your perspective and my perspective as Americans, like you just said, he's Captain America. Like he's now the face of the national team, just like Donovan was. You know, Dempsey made a pretty good career of it
A very good career, yeah.
at
Yeah, he
Fulham because his game was suited to that style of play in that league. Rough, rugged. He's that Texas tough cowboy.
Yes, he was. And he was, listen, a phenomenal performance from him over across the pond because, like you said, he fit the mold and he didn't take no shit. And frankly, I would take a fight with Christian Pulisic over a fight with Clint Dempsey any day of the week.
Yeah.
Right? No offense to him. It's just
Yeah.
you play in a slightly slower and a slightly softer league that plays a lot of three at the back. It's perfect for a winger, you know, and they let him also play in the middle. He gets to play multiple positions. So, you know, what a fantastic opportunity. I'm very happy for him because honestly, I was worried about his career trajectory there. You know, he got passed over and passed off at Chelsea. He went for, I think, a bargain and a half, you know, over to Milan, and he didn't start well.
No,
He
he
didn't
didn't.
start well. He wasn't fitting in, and you know, like I said, our national team needs him desperately. We need a face around the world that says our program matters because it attracts young talent. You were looking at, you know, our homegrown roster in MLS, which is very important, but we need to attract talent from around the world. There are plenty of players who are eligible to play for the United States that wouldn't pick it if we didn't have a superstar, frankly. And now we do. So it's helping Pochettino develop the team. Oh, here we go. Hey, AJ, doubling down.
Oh my God, this is an investment that's going south.
I love it. I love it. Listen, are they going to stay undefeated against the first place team, AJ?
When's that match, AJ? I'll be watching.
There we go. I know we're running out of time here. I did just want to touch on, you brought up as one of your topics, the MLS heavy roster for the U.S. men's national team. One player I wanted to point out, MLS Young Player of the Year, Diego Luna,
Yeah.
is in the lineup. Very excited to see him play. I love the fact that we have homegrown talent that we can get excited about again. So
I'm happy with what he's doing. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when I read that article and I shared it with you last night, I'm saying to myself, this is what I want to see. Like, he's going to see what he's got. These are only friendlies. And let's see what else I got to work with besides the known names.
yeah,
You know?
you have to
Excited to see this
encourage.
kid.
Yeah, you have to encourage the local players, regardless of whether they're going to make your final roster or not. If he's going to build this team from the ground up, we already know what we have. And players who are playing in Europe, they've proven themselves. Weston McKennie is going to start in the midfield. Tyler Adams, whether we need him at right back or in defensive midfield, he's going to start. We know that. Christian Pulisic, every game he's available, will start. What about the rest of the guys? If the MLS players feel like they're getting slighted, which depending on the previous managers we've had, Arenas loved the MLS. He put very MLS heavy rosters together. Bob Bradley bounced back and forth. There were teams that he picked where he had minimal MLS players in the roster. And I think, frankly, MLS players were getting frustrated. If Americans see that they can play in our home league and make the national team and be relevant on that roster, all the better for our future.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I'm happy with it. I'm curious to see how it goes with these 2 matches over the next month. And then what, March? They got some
Yeah.
qualifiers? Yeah.
Comes back in March when it matters. Yep.
So we'll go from there. Nick, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on and kicking it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, AJ. Have a good night, everybody. Go
Good night.
Nashville.
And the sweet film, a song of a life.